Welcome to the Seize the Day weekly podcast, your connection to all things cruising, powered by Travel with Brigetta.
Hi, and welcome to Seize the Day, powered by Travel with Brigetta. My name is Julie Williams, and I am a cruise lover, along with the cruise expert, who is Karla Meza, travel agent and, travel expert. But we're talking about cruises today, so, cruise expert, travel expert in any way. Stay with us for some critical information about traveling with a service dog. That is going to be our topic today. And we're going to talk about traveling by air, traveling by bus, traveling on and hotels. And then mostly our focus is going to be, of course, traveling on board a cruise ship. Now, I have to give a disclaimer, if you want to call it that. I have a service dog, and I have traveled with him by air, bus, and hotels. But when it comes to onboard cruising, I've been kind of afraid to, because I haven't looked into the information. So all the information that I'm giving here is information that I've compiled doing my own research and asking other people what their experiences are. Okay, so as far as I know, everything is, right, but also things are subject to change. Rules, regulations are subject to change. Mexico just changed some immigration as you're driving over the border. Just yesterday, they changed some of the documents that you need. So always double check ahead of time and I'll tell you how to do that too, but always double check what the current regulations are, okay? And then, of course, we're going to answer the question that I know is on your mind because it's on everybody else's. Okay, so we're going to get to that in a little bit. So traveling with a service dog, it can be fun and rewarding. I know that we become so attached to our service dogs, but it can also be extremely stressful. I have found it worth it and not too stressful by air, bus, and hotel. And I'll talk to you a little bit about each of those. But, again, by cruise ship, it looks like I'm up in the air. I haven't decided, am I going to do this or not? In the past, I haven't done it because I was afraid he'd fall off the ship, which most travel agents laugh at me for.
No, that's a genuine, thought and possibility. It happens.
Yeah, your mind
fall off the ship.
Your mind goes to what is the worst that could happen? I have never heard of a service dog falling off a ship, though.
I haven't either, so that's good to know.
Also coming up, the only two questions that people are legally allowed to ask you about a service dog. I mean, nobody can ask you all the details because it's like a HIPAA thing. Nobody can ask you about your personal disabilities.
Right.
Okay, so let's start with travel by air. Okay, a couple of regulations. Your service dog cannot sit on the seat. Mine is 15 pounds and he sits on my lap. Others have to lay down. A lot of people go for the bulkhead seats because maybe they have a larger service dog who will lay down at their feet and can fit there. Some of these big service dogs, I don't know how. I've seen it on TV. I've seen it on YouTube. I don't know how they get that dog underneath the seat. You can usually pre-board. You have to ask to. I just tell them, can I pre-board? It takes me a little bit longer to get settled than everybody else. And often I'm the first one on the plane, or I'll be the first one behind the wheelchairs. But it gives me an opportunity to, I carry him in a pack, a front pack, and just take him out of the pack and, get myself settled, put my things down and all that kind of stuff without falling all over people at the same time. And another thing I do all the time, and we'll talk about this a little bit more later, is I give him, I sometimes put him in a diaper. I don't let other people see it because they question if he's a service dog. But here's the deal. I was traveling one time in first class, and you develop an attachment with your service dog where you read each other's minds. And I could give him a new command that he's never heard before, but he knows exactly what I'm saying. And so he was sitting on my lap, and I thank God I was in first class for this because I'm not sure the flight attendants would have accommodated me if I wasn't. But he was just kind of fidgeting in such a way. I'm like, oh my God, he has to poop. And he was shaking and he was
Wow.
very stressed because he couldn't. He knew he couldn't do it right
He
now, but he
knew.
had to go so bad. So I got up and I got a diaper out of the up above,
Overhead bin?
out of the overhead bin. Thank you. And put it on him. And the flight attendant allowed me to walk up to right behind the cockpit, and I walked him. Okay. And he knows when he's going for a walk, that's the time to go. And so I walked him and he went in the diaper. And so I was able to take care of that situation. And then thank God I had it, because he would have either been totally miserable, and it's not healthy either, or he
Right.
would have made a mess everywhere and they would have given me a hard time. I would have been cleaning it up, perhaps paying a fee like you will on a cruise ship if that happens. Or I would have, be like banned as if he's not a real service dog, because service dogs don't do that. But the thing is, sometimes your service dog gets sick. When I went to Mexico and I was in an Airbnb, I took him to all these restaurants, and a lot of times that they would bring him a bowl of water, and I just didn't think
Oh,
about it. But I was
right.
drinking bottled water, but it didn't occur to me
Mhm.
that he wasn't. And so I would come back from something where I didn't take him, and there'd be diarrhea all over the place, uh, a lot, often. And I'm sure that was what it was. So if you're going to take the dog out and there's an issue, you want to have a
Be
diaper with you.
prepared.
Be
Yeah.
prepared. Exactly. So another thing you're going to need for traveling with your service dog is a TSA form. And you have to fill it out for each trip. It's just got the basics, his name, what is his purpose, and we'll get to that when they do the questions. You don't have to get the 2 questions they can ask. You don't have to give too much information. And sometimes they'll need your travel number. So you always want to do everything in advance. And the travel number, I've only encountered this once. I think it was American. It might've been United. It was one of the ones that I typically don't use, but it was what I had to get. And I'm asking, like, they're asking for this number. And I'm like, the ADA doesn't have numbers like this, right? Well, it turns out that I had to register him to the airline, and the airline assigns him a number, but they weren't clear about how to do that. So I had to jump through some hoops to get it done. But now I have his number written down. So anytime I fly that airline, I just have to put in that number, and it'll be easier from now on. So
So I
and
have a
always,
question about that.
okay.
Is that like his own like mileage account? Like it's an AA Advantage account number, or it's just something totally different?
Wouldn't that be nice?
When you said yeah, because when you said traveler number, I was thinking like known traveler number, like a TSA pre-check or something
Yeah.
like that. But you're saying you had to do this with the airline directly.
Just one airline. No one else has ever. Mostly, it's been Southwest and sometimes Delta that I've been flying. But this one airline, which I believe was American, had the specific number, and I think it was to say, "Hey, this dog has been cleared already to be a service dog, so you don't have to research it," or something like that. I'm not really sure. But always go in advance, contact the airline in advance, let them know you're traveling with a service dog, and then so that they're ready for it. And then also, if there is a requirement, like you have to have a number like that, then they'll know. Okay, Karla, any questions about traveling by air with a service dog?
Yes. How does your service dog ever feel stressed? Like, have you noticed maybe from the first flight to now if they've become accustomed to it? Like, what was the difference maybe from the first flight and the last flight you took?
Now, I'm not saying that can't happen, because some dogs do get stressed. I mean, one
Right,
got
right.
so stressed on a cruise ship, you wouldn't stop barking, and they got stuck in the cabin. But for Silver Lining is his name. For Silver, from the very start, he was comfortable. With him, he serves me, but he thinks I'm his service person because I take care of him. And we're bonded so tightly that if he's there on my lap, he's not stressed. If I leave to go to the bathroom and I leave him, he'll be looking at the bathroom and he won't stop looking at it till I get back. but he's not exactly stressed because I tell him I'll be right back, so he knows that I am coming back.
Okay.
Okay. But when it comes to like the situation where he had to go to the bathroom so bad, that was very stressful for him. But just the actual
Mhm.
flying, even landing and taking off, hasn't been a problem. And thankfully, he's never had pain with his ears. That's pretty.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty bad. I've had it before, and I barely know what to do with me besides swallow and yawn or whatever. I don't know what I could do for him, but he hasn't really gotten stressed at all. Most service dogs, as part of their training, first they go through the public access training, which is basically a good citizenship type thing, how to behave in public, right? And then they go through. You take them to airports around all the crowds. You expose them to lots of different experiences. With cruises, though, there's the motion of the ship and other unfamiliar things. So we can't anticipate if they'll be stressed because my dog has never been in that situation. And of course, the first time you take yours, he will not have been in it either. Okay, so traveling
So
by bus.
how long have you been traveling with your service animal?
About, let's see, he's 14. I would say 13 years, maybe.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, you have a lot of experience with this.
Right. And things have changed a lot. In the industry, they've really changed a lot. But if you ever
And
traveled with an emotional support dog, they had so many requirements. When it comes to a service dog, it's so much easier. You have to have a prescription and all this kind of stuff with emotional support, but that's not valid anymore because you can't travel. Most of them won't let you travel with emotional support, and they don't legally have to anymore. But with a service dog,
no, not for free of cost the way it is with the service animal. Because I have actually traveled with two of my cats. I did a very long haul flight with them, but I have to pay for them because they're not, any type. They're just pets.
Yeah, if they're small pets, there is a small fee. I mean, it's not like a whole nother airfare, but you have to put them in a crate and in an approved crate underneath the seat in front of you. And my dog has never been crated in his life, but he's not an emotional support dog, although all dogs give you emotional support. But he's a legitimate ADA service dog. So he meets the requirements of that. So he sits on my lap or on the floor. He's not allowed to sit on the seat. They've given me a hard time, even when I've taken him out of the pouch and set him on a seat so I could take the backpack, the front pack thing off of me and put it under the seat and then pick him up, get in and buckle and then put him on my lap. I mean, maybe 1 minute he's sitting on the seat. And I've had, I think there are certain flight attendants who just don't like dogs. And I've had a few of them give me a hard time. And I'm like, do you want to hold him for a minute? I don't know what else to do. Right. But then some of them are like that. And others are like, oh, he's so sweet. What's his name? Would you like some water for him? Which is what I found in Mexico at all the restaurants. And, they're he didn't have to be a service dog there. He was, and he had his vest on, and they do have service dog laws. But most places allow your dog in Mexico to go everywhere anyway.
Right.
If they behave. Okay, so
would you say over the years, do you think it's become more accommodating or less accommodating? Or just like you said, it just depends on who is there with you and who's kind of running the service for that flight that day?
Well, it's both. Airlines have been very good because of federal law. They're really good. Now, the law has tightened up a lot, and nobody can bring emotional support animals. But also, I've noticed there are far, far, far fewer service dogs. And part of it is because since they've tightened the laws, people are afraid. But it is a federal law that you cannot say you have a service dog when you don't. Right. So, there's no certification. The ADA does not know who my dog is. The ADA does not know who anybody's dogs are. But he meets the requirements of a service dog. He's had the training of a service dog for a specific task, which is what the criteria is. He has to be trained to perform a specific task that you need because of your disability. Okay, but they're not allowed to ask about your disability. And
Right.
and we'll get to that. Okay, so traveling by bus. I've only traveled with him once by bus, and that was a travel with Brigetta trip to Branson, Missouri. He was very, very good on that trip. Most service dogs probably are. Since it was a chartered bus, I had him on the seat. I put a little blanket down, but I had him on the seat right next to me, and it was no problem. In fact, the bus wasn't full, so a lot of us got to have, the two seats side by side. And so, it was very comfortable, and he traveled very well. He would just lay down, maybe look out the window. He travels well by car. He likes looking out the window. Um, the buses, whether they're chartered or a Greyhound, they typically stop every couple of hours. So you can typically get out, even if it's like a 10-minute break for more people to get on, you can typically get out so he can go potty.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I like. There was one time by air, we had a 10-hour flight. And that was because we were just going from, I believe it was Tampa, Florida to Sacramento, California. And we went by way of like Nashville, Chicago, Phoenix, to Sacramento. I mean, it was crazy. We had to take so many changes, and it was
Wow.
like
A lot of
it took 10
connections.
hours, which if it were direct would have taken me from, no, I mean, actually it went from Atlanta to Atlanta. If I had gone from Atlanta straight to Sacramento, it would have been 3.5 hours, something like that.
I
But
think it's about 4.5.
yeah, okay. From Sacramento, I don't know. I've done it before, but it's been a long time. I don't remember. But
Yeah. 'Cause California to Texas is 2.5, almost 3. So, and then it's almost about the same towards Atlanta, Miami.
well, they all of the airports are, and we changed flights a number of times. All of the airports are required to have service animal relief areas, right? But when I
Yes.
took him there, he wouldn't go in it. If they have a little box thing, kind of like a litter box. They often have astroturf or some sort of fake
Yes.
grass, or in other places they might have, like wood chips or shavings or sand or whatever for the service dogs. It varies. But he was sniffing around and he wouldn't go. And the entire 10 hours he didn't go. And I didn't have a diaper, but he was
Oh,
fine.
wow.
I mean, obviously he had to go once we landed, which I did. Very first thing is I took him to go outside, where he went right away. But so they can go a while if they're trained not to, to go like on your lap or when they're in a vehicle. They're trained to basically only go outside. So for a bus, you need the same paperwork.
Okay.
Typically you're going to need the same paperwork everywhere, except, and when we get to the cruise, we'll talk about this. If you're going to another country, okay, then there's all of the bus paperwork that you need for the bus company, and then there's going to be all the paperwork that you need for that country, which varies by country. But I found it to be not too difficult to travel by bus. The hardest thing was, the easiest thing was hotels. You don't even have to tell the hotel the dog is coming. You just let them know when you're there, I have a service dog. And the service dog, anytime a service dog doesn't behave, like if he poops on the floor or he barks at someone or, another dog or anything, then they can kick him out, even though he's a service dog. But otherwise, they don't have a choice.
Okay, and I have a question for that one as well. So because it's a service animal, does that mean he is allowed at any hotel, or do you still specifically look for hotels that allow animals?
Any hotel. It doesn't have to be a pet-friendly hotel. I prefer it when it's not, because sometimes it can be a distraction. Service dogs are trained not to allow distractions to get to them, but that they're still, I was going to say they're still human. They still
have their innate, their natural nature.
That's right. It is their nature. And also they're very protective of you. So they are very aware of what's going on around you, particularly if their job is like someone has PTSD. One of the things the dog will do is like walk behind them and make sure nobody gets too close. If the dog is for a seizure, they will often lay down so that you'll fall on top of them, and they'll let you know the seizure is coming so that you can get ready to not get hurt when you go down, or you can call for help, and so they always want to know exactly what's around them and where they should lay down, so it just depends on what the dog is trained to do. They all do the good citizenship thing, which is required if you don't want to get kicked out of somewhere. If they're going to misbehave, they'll get kicked out. But then they're also, each one is trained for something totally different. Okay. The cruise lines, they do allow, they have to, the US based, or the ones who come to the US have to allow service dogs. Okay. They don't have a choice. But there are different requirements for each country that you have to go through. Okay. For example, if I'm going on a Caribbean cruise, okay, for Jamaica, it's pretty easy. But I'd have to get with their Department of Agriculture to find out, okay, what their requirements are, what they need a certain health certificate, especially if you're going to go to another country. They need a health certificate and other things. If you're going to go to the Bahamas, start months in advance. It's a nightmare to get a hold of someone. And, it's just like bad. And the thing is, if you don't have all that paperwork done, some cruise lines won't let you even get on the ship, because sometimes you have to have, like the Bahamas, you have to have that paperwork even if you don't disembark, because you're in their waters.
That's what I was about to ask as well. Could you maybe just decide, oh, I'm just going to stay on the ship and I'm not going to do, port days. I'm just going to stay here. But no, that's
and in some countries you can. In some countries you can do exactly that, but in other countries you can't. Canada has been pretty easy. Mexico has been pretty easy. But you want to prepare months in advance, or at least do a little bit of research to know how far in advance you have to prepare. But everybody, you need to make requests in advance to every single, you need to make requests in advance to every single country.
Port.
And every single country that a port is in, except the US, if you've already got that paperwork. I mean, you're coming from the US and coming back into the US, the only thing that you need to have, that you don't need necessarily to go on a cross-country trip, is you have to have a rabies certificate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking of a rabies certificate, all countries require that. However, we, I always get silver the 3-year certificate, but some countries require the 1 year. So find out, because you might have to go get your dog another shot if it's been more than a year. I would recommend that, even if it hasn't, because they might just look at the expiration date and say, no, this is no good. I wouldn't take any chances, because you're taking a chance on not being able to board your ship once you get there. Because if everything is not in order, they will turn you down and not let you get on the ship. And there are many instances that I've heard of where that's happened. And some people, they've shown up not doing any preparation at all. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but if you have a service dog, you should know better than that. But then there are others who, did everything, but were missing one piece of the puzzle, and they couldn't get on the ship. Okay. Let's see. I've got some notes here so I don't forget to tell you something. Okay. So one of the things you want to do if you're going on a cruise ship, okay, is notify the ship ahead of time that you're traveling with a cruise dog, with a service dog. And there are different companies, and you can find out, your travel agent might know, or the cruise line will be able to tell you. For Princess, you're going to go to a department called Special Needs at Sea. Mm-hmm. Okay. For some of the others, it's going to be the Access Department for accessibility. Okay. So ask those people, what is it that I need to get on the ship, to starters? And they might even be able to help you with knowing at least a list of what you need for each country you're going to. I don't know if they can help with that. I've never called them before, but they can also, you can ask them, if I have an issue on board, who do I go to for help? Is there anyone I can go to for help? And then anything else, like what I would ask them, and we'll get to this in a little bit, is, can I have a relief area box put on my balcony, my balcony, which usually the answer is no, but you know, you got to give it a try or it's definitely going to be no, right? So carry your documents everywhere you go. And what I would do is I would have one set of documents that you can hand to the cruise line that they can keep, one set of documents to put in your safe, one set of document copies to carry with you if you get off the ship, and then one set of documents digitally on your phone.
Yes.
So you know you're going to have it no matter what happens. So, you know, that's basically what I would suggest you do.
That's great advice, I think.
And the other thing is, you know, a service dog vest is not required. They don't even need a tag. You don't have to have anything written all over them, but things are easier when they have a vest.
I think the best part about them wearing the vest as well is that you don't have, you know, the random people that just say, oh, I want to pet your dog, or, you know, how sweet. And you almost get a little less attention.
Yeah, you'll get less of that. You actually will get some of that because some people don't know. You know, there's the person who just lost their dog, or a dog lover, or someone misses their dog while they're on the ship, or they don't know it's a service dog if you're not wearing the vest, and they say, oh, I didn't know you could bring dogs on the ship, which some cruise lines allow you to, and some cruise lines don't. But it's not, I wouldn't recommend bringing a pet on because they have to stay in a crated kennel type area. And there's people there that will take care of them. You pay well for it, but they will take care of them, and they'll take them for relief, and they feed them and stuff. You have to provide the food, of course, but they take care of the dog. And then there's visiting hours. So, you know, you have just a short period of time when you can go visit your dog. So I think with the dog being stuck, or cat or whatever, being stuck in a crate all day long, they'd probably be happier being left at home. Your pet would. So I wouldn't recommend bringing a pet, but a service dog is different. Okay, there is one that does allow that. I believe it's the Queen Mary 2. Cunard, Queen Mary 2 that goes transatlantic. They allow pets, but I'm told it's very, very expensive. So you definitely want to.
That's a transatlantic cruise. So more than likely you're going from A to B, not circling back around.
Right.
So that sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah, and if you're bringing a service dog there, the only country you're going to need to worry about is the one that you land on. Unless you're like, say, going to Europe and then you're going to travel, then every country, no matter what form of transportation, you're going to have to figure out what their situation is. Now, one of the things that you're going to do is go to the USDA. I said the Department of Agriculture. USDA is basically that, you know, Department of Agriculture. They're going to require a health certificate that's called a 7001. And do your research, they'll give you the number, okay? A 7001 health certificate will cost you about $35. Your vet will do it. But here's the thing, is they have to be like, depending on the cruise line or the country, they have to be like in the last 7 days or in the last 14 days or 10 days or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you can't just, you know, have a health certificate that you can use this year. Right. You have to you have to have a very, very recent one, which can be a pain because it's $35 every time you're going to go somewhere. And it's a trip to the vet every time you're going to go somewhere. So I try to,
that has to be planned ahead as well.
And that's for cruising. I haven't had to do that for going to Mexico.
Oh, that's good. I had to do that when I moved my pets from Hawaii to Texas.
Did they quarantine them?
No, they didn't have the quarantine because they were born from Hawaii. The quarantine is when you're bringing an animal from the mainland and moving them to Hawaii. That's when you have the quarantine.
Oh, I see.
But I had to go through within the 14 days of travel, the rabies shot, the airline. But I did fly with Delta, and it was a pretty good experience.
Delta has always been good with me. I really like Delta. And the other thing is about other countries that you need to check with each one. Even if you don't disembark the ship, Sometimes the country also has a fee, as well as you
Oh,
having to provide all of this information. And our service dog requirements, and this is especially relevant if you're going to get off the ship, our service dog requirements are more lax than other countries, particularly Europe. So he might have had to go through some like specific curriculum or some, high dollar service dog training. I couldn't afford to do that. So I worked with a trainer where the trainer and I met every week and we both did the training. I did most of the training in between. So, and then I was just paying her fee by the session. And a lot of times you can find dog trainers who will do that. But otherwise it could be $10,000 to $30,000, like for the training of, say, a guide dog. That's
wow.
pretty elaborate training, and it can cost a lot of money. Okay, onboard conditions. It can get really crowded, especially on elevators. If your dog is extra nervous, he's probably not the best qualified service dog. And they get used to crowds, but in an elevator where they're smushing everybody in, especially if you ever tried the last day to carry your own bags down, or even to get down to whatever level, the elevators come and go, and they're so sardine packed that you can't get in. And that's one of the reasons I carry a front pack and don't have him walking. I don't want people running through an airport, tripping on him, or him getting in the way of something by accident, because so much is going on so fast. And then also in something like that, in a sardine elevator, he's inevitably going to get hurt, so I'm real careful about that.
I don't even like being in an elevator that's overly packed. My fear is that it's going to get stuck.
Oh my gosh.
So I'll wait for the next one.
If I'm going to die, don't let it be like this. Right.
You know what? It's not even that. It's not even that kind of fear. It's more just that I don't want to be stuck in this room, in this, 6x6 room with all these people for like hours on end. Like, if there's a child over there, are they going to start crying because they're hungry? Am I going to start crying because I'm hungry? Like, it's just one of those random, irrational fears that I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do it. Not going to risk it.
Even your dog could be an issue if they can't hold it anymore because you've been in that elevator for hours, and nobody's happy, right? Sometimes it's hard on a ship to find a place to play. So
that's what I was going to ask, if there are any restricted areas as well that you can't go into with your service animal.
None of the public areas are restricted, but a lot of the areas, like we can't go into the staff areas, right, where the staff has their cabins and where they have their bars and dining and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And there's like a whole nother cruise ship in there, and we can't go into that.
Let's say you book a spa treatment. Can he come in there with you?
Probably has to, but he doesn't have to he can't go into pools or spas, the jacuzzis. And a lot of places don't allow him in the pool area. You can walk by externally from the pool area, but going to sit down and, be by the pool and stuff, a lot of times they don't allow that. And if I'm in the pool, my dog would like to be sitting down right at the edge of the pool watching me. So, you've got to, watch out for things like that. Okay. Some people think the dogs have to be in kennels when you're walking with them or transporting them around. That is not true. My dog has never been in a kennel and never needs to, but pets do. Now, I don't know you're not allowed to walk your pet in the public areas at all. You can just visit the pet in the kennel. Okay. You're going to come across people who want to touch him. And sadly, people who want to sabotage. Either they're angry that the dog is there, or they want to prove that you're faking it, that he's not a real service dog. There are vests now that say not every disability is visible. If you look at me and I'm walking through something, you're not going to know that there's a disability there.
Right.
Right. And unless somebody has like a seeing eye dog, even my mother in her 80s who had a hearing dog who has actually saved her from a mugger once, because he
Wow.
turned and really looked at that mugger like, don't you dare. And the guy turned around and walked away, right? You know, you couldn't necessarily see why my mother had a service dog, and she didn't wear a vest. But my son's, he's like my son. My dog's vest, actually, he is um, a medical alert dog, is what I tell them, because nothing else is their business. And
Right.
he is for diabetes,
Okay.
right? So like some dogs have to. My mom's dog had to look around and see, is someone coming too close? Whereas
Mhm.
mine just has to smell me, because of
He's
if
focused on
you're
you and what changes you might have.
right, and he does not like to be far from me, right? But if if blood sugar is too high or goes too high, then your breath, your pores, everything emits acetone. So if it's starting to go too high, or if it is too high, he'll smell that. And if it is too low or it's dropping too fast, he'll smell that. It'll be ketones that he smells. So the dogs can tell even before I have any symptoms, and I know the dogs can tell that I'm on the way to something, which is really easy, because the biggest thing for a diabetic is if the blood sugar crashes and you go way hypoglycemic, way too low, that can kill you. And you know you have to eat something right now.
Right. Hmm.
So, you know, milk is the best, because it has protein to stabilize the blood sugar, and it has sugar in it also to raise the blood sugar. But that's another story. So people want to sabotage him, which might be to taunt him. It's for most dogs, somebody running, instinctively they want to chase anything that runs. So they have to overcome that. And that's going to happen. You're going to see kids running around and people running in airports, kids running around on
Yeah.
a cruise ship. Yeah, I've run in airports many times. So a lot of times people will accuse you of being fake, and they might complain. Um, what was it? I believe it was Carnival. There was one cruise line that had a bunch of people with a petition, and they were complaining about the service dogs on the ship. The cruise lines don't even have a choice. A service dog is a service dog, and legally they have to let him on the ship. It's not
Right.
like there's pets running around crazy, but some people are just like that. They want to, if they want to
Yeah.
travel without a service dog, well, too bad. Because anywhere in the world you go, you're going to find service dogs.
Yeah. And it's like, you're on this huge ship with so many people. It's like, how many service animals were really on your ship that bothered you that much?
And there's usually a handful on there, but most of the time, and especially when a service dog is behaving and doing a good job, they kind of blend in the background,
Hmm.
and you might not even notice them. Now I carry Silver a lot on in my front pack, and part of the reason is because he can smell me better there, but it's also because it's convenient. I don't have to worry about him with everybody around. He's smaller, so I'm not worried about his behavior. I'm worried about if somebody's going to bump into him.
Yeah. Step on
And,
him, not notice him.
and there was a situation a couple of weeks ago on an airline where this guy got upset that these people had, there's two hearing impaired, a couple, and they had a service dog. And one of the guys on the airplane actually kicked the dog because he
My
was upset.
goodness.
See, I mean, it's just a crazy world. You just don't know
Yeah.
what to anticipate. Here are some of the rules. They can't bark. I mean, maybe a bark or two if someone is at the door, but I mean, they can't do incessant barking. They can't bite anybody. They can't slip up on their potty training. They can't get up on furniture in the public areas. You can't leave them unattended. You can't leave them unattended in your cabin at all.
Mhm.
So they have to be with you at all times, or there has to be somebody with them. Like if you had a friend and you were going to get off the ship, but not bring him off the ship, the only option you have is if somebody else brings them, or you have to take them off the ship, which can be complicated. It just depends on what country. And when you do take them off the ship, again, depending on what country, vendors and store owners might be allowed to ban him from the store. And some
Oh, wow.
countries like Mexico, nobody would even think about doing that no matter what. But then there are other countries, my guess is maybe the Bahamas, just because they have such strict rules, where they might kick you out and then you do have to leave the store. Whereas in the US, that's against federal law. But in other countries, it's not. So when you're at the port, you have to remember you're in another country. They have to be calm among noises and running. They can't beg for food.
Mm.
Oh, and when you go to the muster drill, you have to bring the dog. So, but some cruise lines will require you to have a life jacket for the dog. I have one, and I haven't brought him on a cruise, but I will bring it with me. I mean, if there's a problem, he's definitely going to have a life jacket. I'm not going to leave him to swim, for how long, right? So, I mean, they're a little bit of an expense, but it's less than $100.
Yeah, and you'll have that for some time, I'm sure.
Right, and I'd like to go kayaking and paddle boarding and stuff like that. So that's why I have that for him, so he can join me. He doesn't like the water. I'm trying to train him to like the water. And when he doesn't like being in the water, he didn't like being on the water because he's afraid he's going to end up in the water. Okay, so the question you're asking, the question on everybody's mind, I'll get to in a second, and also a quick analysis. Can you bring a service dog? And the other question is, should you? And that's what I'm wrestling with. I'm gathering all of the information, and this has been very enlightening to me, because I'm not sure. But I want to take a second now to tell you we've got some upcoming group cruises, one of them to Alaska in 2026 in the summer, and one of them is coming up to the Bahamas. And be sure you do it a long time in advance if you've got a service dog. One coming up to the Bahamas, which is this summer. I believe it's in June. But go ahead and get a hold of us at bookings@travelwithbrigetta.com if you'd like information about those or any other groups that we're doing, because all of the group trips, you can usually get better deals and other incentives like onboard credit and things like that. It just depends on the cruise. So ask your travel agent, either at bookings with Travel with Brigetta or at our phone number. You can call and talk to somebody or leave a message. We'll get back with you as soon as we can. And then we can let you know of the group cruises that we have coming up. Or maybe you might want to start a group cruise if you have, say, a family reunion or a bunch of friends. And if you do that, you can save a lot of money. Everybody will save, and that really adds up. So the bottom line, you can bring a service dog, but should you? Here are some things to consider. It could be stressful for you and your dog. Okay, here's the way to think of it. If you remember nothing else, it's like traveling with a 2-year-old everywhere you go. Do you want to take the 2-year-old off the boat? You can't leave the 2-year-old. A 2-year-old, you could probably leave in the daycare there, but you can't do that with this 2-year-old. They're going to have special needs, especially in this stressful circumstance that's nonstop for 7 days or whenever. They need time to rest, because this kind of working is hard working and it's not something you're used to. So it's going to be stressful for them. And they're going to need some extra playtime. And they're going to need you to actually be their service person and recognize their needs. If things are getting too stressful, then you need to go to your cabin and help the dog. So you're kind of like the special service person. Some suggestions I have: if you're going to bring a service dog on board, pack a life jacket. Food and treats, they don't provide any food or any treats. They don't provide anything. They don't provide poop bags for the dogs either. So always make sure you have plenty of those, which, if you have a service animal, that's probably, standard, because everywhere you go, you need one. I carry baby wipes so that there's no mess left over, and his vest and a leash. And then toys, because he needs some playtime, a tug of war rope or whatever his favorite toys are. And then don't forget his bowls. A blanket or something to put on the bed, or, bring a bed if he's a small dog and has like one of those cushy beds. You can bring that so that they feel more at home. I always bring Ziploc bags no matter what. So it doesn't hurt to have Ziploc bags for dog things as well, like maybe to bring treats with you while you are even just walking around the public areas, or while you're in port, just some little treats. And I bring cans of pumpkin and a can opener. And here's why. Sometimes a dog gets travel diarrhea, or has an intestinal issue of some kind while you're on board or anywhere. So I have it at home too.
Mhm.
Pumpkin will balance no matter what the issue is. Pumpkin will balance, stop the diarrhea or make them go, or whatever it is that their
Right. Yeah.
that their gut needs. And so I always bring that. And then, of course, I travel with a water bowl. And especially if you're going to get off the ship, you might have a water bottle, depending on the country that you're in. And they have these foldable water bowls, or, water containers.
Collapsible one.
Yeah, you could put them in your back
Yeah.
pocket even, and so when you're traveling around and it's like, it's hot, and then, because you've been on a cruise, and say a tropical cruise, it's hot, you want to stop somewhere and pour some water in it, you have to remember that. Okay, the number one question that people ask, which you probably already know, is where do dogs relieve themselves on a cruise ship?
Yes.
Okay, they have these special box-like sandbox type things, like kind of like what the airports have in the relief areas. Okay, and they'll have different kinds of surfaces, whatever, like the some will have sand, and some will have the wood chips or shavings, and another will have like astroturf. Occasionally I've heard that someone was able to have one on their balcony, which is what I would prefer, but that's rare. You have to request it, and that's rare. But they have a designated area where they put it, and I believe there's only one on the ship. The problem is you're on the top floor on that end of the ship, and it's on the bottom floor on that end. You don't know where it is. It's outside in a not very public area. It's public, but it's not very, people don't go there. Okay.
Right.
And they don't have poop bags there. They probably don't even have water there. They just have a box. Okay. So you'll have to clean up after your dog as well. The thing about that is they're outside. So if the weather is horrible, if you're in a storm and it's like getting really rocky, or if it is going to be very windy most of the time, you have to go out in that weather, even in the middle of the night when you're half asleep.
Oh, wow.
And the dog has to go, and you have to go to the way other end of the ship, or it's so crowded and you can't get to that floor in the elevator on that last day, whatever. You have to get to that area for them to go. So that's one major disadvantage. I mean, I would really want them to be on the balcony if there was any way possible. And you need to train him to go in a box if he doesn't know how. If they're not used to that, like it's hard for my dog to go in a box because he rarely goes in an airport area. He has, but that's rare. And he knows that he goes outside. So it's kind of hard for him to realize. He won't just recognize the box is the place to go. But you can train them with a sandbox or a kiddie pool with something like sand or wood shavings or whatever you want in it. You can start training them ahead of time to be able to go in an area like that because you point at it. Fortunately, my dog will go on cue. I tell him to go potty, and he does. At home, I'll go to the door. I say, you want to go potty? And if he just stands there and just kind of looks at me like, huh, means he doesn't have to go. But he will let me know if he does. But okay, you want to start, general advice here, you want to start at least 30 days in advance. Honestly, I would, on a cruise, I would start far more in advance than that, because you're going to want to check with each country. And then you've got Jamaica over here, but then you've got the Bahamas over there. So, Jamaica, 30 days, easy. Mexico, 30 days, easy. Bahamas, not. St. Croix, I have no clue. You see, you have to check, and you have to check.
And that's where, if you're working with a travel agent, we can do all of that for you.
Right. And get the latest laws. Mm-hmm. So your travel agent will know what to do. And especially the travel agents, you can call the cruise line's number, but you're just another person calling in. But when you have a travel agent, they have a contact at that cruise line. And so you're going to get better attention because that contact that we have at the cruise line is going to know more about what you need, and is going to have the relationships where the person is going to say, okay, well, this is one of Karla's customers. I'm going to take care of her. You see, so you always get better treatment if you book with a travel agent. A lot of people don't know that. And of course, you never pay more. You might pay less, but you will never pay more than what you can get online with a cruise line. Okay, so make sure you get your health check. I would say, just to be safe, get it within the last week. Okay. Let's see.
Get it within the last week, but make sure you're in communication with that vet as soon as you can to make sure that they have availability that week. Don't wait 2 weeks before to make that appointment.
Yeah, you have to be able to get in. And it's a pretty easy exam. Especially if you have a current vet. Like my dog goes once a year, he gets all the tests, all the blood tests, all the shots and all that stuff once a year. So they've got all the records. They just have to do a quick once over on him. And some places, like when I flew to Mexico with him, they had a section where they did a quick check him over, and they didn't really do anything extensive. They're just looking for like parasites and fleas and things like that. And he was nice and clean, freshly groomed. It was no problem. Okay. On board. I would say once you get on, go immediately to guest services, because you're going to want to find out, where is this relief area? And if you're confused, you're going to say, I need somebody to take me there and show me. Okay. And then also, I would suggest you have his vest on. The vests, there's no official agency that sends the vests to you. You can get them online. When someone's online telling you, hey, get your dog certified, that's a bunch of, let me take your money. Okay. But to sell the vests, they do that online. And the one I have has a little Velcro strip where you can also order the specific tag, medical alert or whatever, to put on it, which is what I've done. And then, ask if there's a designated person on board who's there to help. Sometimes they have, for accessibility purposes, no matter what the disability is, sometimes they have one person who's your key contact that can help you with any issues that you have. Okay. And then a copy of the rules for the cruise line, which you can find on the cruise line's website or your travel agent can give you, so that you don't inadvertently break a rule. Because if you do, or your dog does, like I mentioned, the one lady whose dog was freaked out over the crowds, okay, and the new noises, and started barking and wouldn't stop. And she got basically quarantined to her cabin with the dog. And all of the cabins around them got comped a free cruise because the dog wouldn't stop barking.
Oh, wow.
So you just, they can do that to you. It's law will allow them to do that. You just, the dog has to, that'll ruin your trip, everybody else's trip. Let's see. Oh, by the way, if you have an experience traveling with a service dog, particularly on a cruise, put that in the comments below. We would really, really love to hear your story. And if it's something that we haven't covered that you've learned, a lesson you've learned, do it for other people. For our viewers, yeah, so that they know your advice or the story, the horror that you ran into because of such and such. Because we would always love to hear your thoughts on anything. Okay, we're Karla and Julie. We are here for you every week, courtesy of Travel with Brigetta. Until next week, we hope that you will seize the day.
You've been listening to the Seize the Day podcast, powered by Travel with Brigetta. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. And as always, feel free to ask us anything in the comments section. We love to hear from you. Or email us at bookings@travelwithbrigetta.com. Till next time, seize the day.